Picture this. You've saved every penny, bought your dream home, and settled your family into a quiet, all-American neighborhood. Kids are playing in the yard, neighbors wave hello, and life feels like it's falling into place. But what if, beneath your perfectly mowed lawn, a deadly secret was lurking? 21,000 tons of toxic chemicals, silently poisoning your children, your water, your future. This isn't some dystopian movie plot. This is the chilling, true story of Love Canal, New York. A scandal so shocking it exposed the dark underbelly of corporate greed in America. I'm Your Name, and today we're tearing open the Marilyn files to reveal a toxic truth that big business tried to sweep under the rug. Stay with me, because this isn't just history, it's a warning for every American about what could be hiding in your own backyard. Let's rewind to Niagara Falls, New York, in the 1970s. Meet Lois Gibbs, a 27-year-old mom living the American dream, or so she thought. She wasn't out to change the world. She was just a regular housewife, raising her two kids, Michael and Melissa, in a modest house on 101st Street. Picture her, folding laundry, packing school lunches, chatting with neighbors over coffee. Her life was like yours or mine, until it wasn't. Lois started noticing something terrifying. Her son, Michael, just 5 years old, was always sick. Ear infections that wouldn't quit, asthma attacks that left him gasping, and then, out of nowhere, seizures that shook his little body. Doctors were stumped, prescribing pills and platitudes, but nothing helped. And here's the kicker. Michael wasn't alone. Across the neighborhood, kids were falling apart. Strange rashes, learning problems, even birth defects that left parents heartbroken and scared. Lois couldn't shake the feeling that something was horribly wrong. She started talking to other moms, hearing stories that sounded like hers. One neighbor's daughter had epilepsy that came out of nowhere. Another family lost 2 pregnancies in a row. A kid down the street was born with an extra finger, and nobody could explain why. It was like a cloud of sickness had settled over Love Canal, and no one in charge seemed to care. What Lois didn't know yet was that her cozy neighborhood, with its swing sets and cul-de-sacs, was built on top of a chemical graveyard, a ticking time bomb left by a corporation that valued profits over human lives. Want to know how it all started? Buckle up, because the backstory is a gut punch that'll make you rethink everything you trust about the American system. Our story begins over a century ago, in 1894, with a dreamer named William T. Love. He had a bold plan: dig a massive canal in Niagara Falls to generate hydroelectric power and build a shining model city, a beacon of American progress. But dreams don't always come true. Love ran out of money, and his Grand Canal was abandoned, leaving a gaping, muddy scar in the earth. For decades it sat there forgotten, a relic of ambition gone wrong. Fast forward to the 1940s, when America was powering through World War II and industry was king. That's when Hooker Chemical Company saw that empty canal and thought, perfect, our own private dump. From 1942 to 1953, Hooker turned Love's failed dream into a toxic nightmare. They dumped 21,000 tons of deadly chemicals into that canal, stuff so dangerous it could burn through skin or cause cancer with a single whiff. We're talking dioxin, one of the most toxic substances known to man, linked to everything from leukemia to birth defects. Chlorobenzenes that could fry your nervous system. Benzene, a known killer. They packed this poison into flimsy metal drums, tossed them into the pit, and called it a day. No safety measures, no long-term plan, just dump and go. By the time they were done, the canal was a chemical cesspool, a Pandora's box buried under a thin layer of dirt. Now here's where the story takes a sinister turn that'll make your stomach churn. In 1953, Hooker decided they were done with the site. Did they clean it up? Warn the public? Nope. They covered it with a flimsy layer of clay, called it sealed, and sold the whole poisoned plot to the Niagara Falls School Board for a single $1. $1. They slipped a vague warning into the deed about possible chemical residues, but it was written in legalese so dense no one batted an eye. Did they tell the families who'd soon call this place home? Not a word. It was a classic corporate dodge. Pass the buck and walk away, leaving innocent Americans to deal with the fallout. The school board, either clueless or desperate for cheap land, didn't ask too many questions. They built a brand new elementary school, the 99th Street School, right on top of this toxic graveyard. Developers swooped in, smelling opportunity. They carved up the land around the canal into a sprawling neighborhood. Rows of affordable homes for working-class families chasing the post-war American dream. Young couples, veterans, blue-collar workers. They poured their life savings into these houses, imagining barbecues, birthday parties, and kids growing up safe and happy. By the 1960s, Love Canal was a thriving community of nearly 1,000 families, all blissfully unaware that their homes, their yards, their kids' playgrounds were sitting on a chemical disaster waiting to erupt. Fast forward to the 1970s, and the cracks in this perfect picture started to show. Those rusty drums underground, they weren't holding up. Rainwater seeped through the clay cap, corroding the barrels and unleashing a toxic flood. Chemicals started creeping up through the soil, oozing into basements, contaminating groundwater and tainting the air. Kids playing in their backyards were rolling in dirt laced with carcinogens. Moms washing dishes were using tap water spiked with poison. The whole neighborhood was breathing invisible fumes that could rewrite their DNA. The health impacts were horrifying, like something out of a horror movie. One street reported 8 kids with birth defects, extra limbs, malformed hearts, things no parent should ever see. Another block had a cluster of children with epilepsy, their seizures coming on so fast doctors couldn't keep up. Women suffered miscarriages at rates that defied statistics. Some families lost multiple pregnancies, their dreams of growing their families shattered. Young parents, barely in their 30s, were diagnosed with rare cancers that baffled oncologists. Even pets weren't spared. Dogs dropped dead after digging in yards, cats went blind, and birds stopped singing. One resident found a black tar-like sludge seeping into her basement, burning her skin when she touched it. Families begged for answers. They called doctors, city officials, anyone who'd listen. But the response? Crickets. Doctors chalked it up to bad genes or lifestyle choices. Local officials smiled and said, "Everything's fine, just a little odor." Hooker Chemicals stayed silent, their executives hiding behind lawyers and PR spin. It was the ultimate betrayal. Hard-working Americans, doing everything right, were being gaslit, told their kids' illnesses were all in their heads. The system they trusted, the government, the experts, the corporations, had turned its back on them. That's when Lois Gibbs became a force of nature. She wasn't a scientist or a politician, just a mom who'd had enough. Picture her, clipboard in hand, marching door to door in her suburban sneakers, asking neighbors, "What's wrong with your kids, your pets, your home?" She wasn't just collecting stories. She was building a case that would blow the lid off this scandal. Her determination was pure American grit, the kind of spirit that built this country. But could one woman take on a corporate giant and a complicit government? Keep listening, because what she uncovered will leave you speechless. Lois's homemade health survey was a revelation. She mapped out every illness, every miscarriage, every strange symptom in the neighborhood, and the results were chilling. Homes closest to the old canal were hit hardest. Kids with birth defects at 10 times the normal rate. Families reporting chemical burns from touching basement walls. Even lawns that smelled like a chemical plant after heavy rain. One family found their dog's fur falling out after rolling in the grass. Another watched their toddler develop a rash that wouldn't heal, no matter what doctors tried. Lois's map wasn't just data. It was a cry for help, a portrait of a community under siege. Then came a bombshell that turned this local fight into a national scandal. Michael Brown, a dogged investigative journalist with the Niagara Gazette, caught wind of Lois's work. He wasn't content with official denials. He snuck onto the site, dodging no trespassing signs, and collected soil and water samples. When the lab results came back, they were staggering. Groundwater laced with benzene, dioxin levels 100 times higher than safe limits, and pesticides so toxic they'd been banned years ago. This wasn't a minor spill. It was a full-blown environmental catastrophe, smack in the middle of a working-class neighborhood where kids rode bikes and families planted gardens. But the real gut punch came when whistleblowers leaked Hooker's own documents. These weren't just careless oversights. They were proof of a deliberate cover-up. Internal memos from the 1940s showed Hooker knew exactly how deadly their chemicals were. One report warned that dioxin could cause permanent genetic damage, birth defects that could haunt families for generations. Another described how the drums would inevitably corrode, leaking toxins into the soil. A chilling 1950 memo even admitted some chemicals could cause severe burns or death on contact. They knew the risks, documented them, and still dumped 21,000 tons of poison without a second thought. Why? Because cleaning up properly would have cut into profits. To them, American families were just collateral damage. The cover-up didn't stop with Hooker. It reached deep into the system. As early as 1976, state health officials received complaints about chemical odors in sick kids, but they sat on the reports. A private firm, Calspan, tested homes in 1977 and found toxic vapors in living rooms, basements, even school playgrounds. Their urgent recommendations to evacuate? Ignored, buried in bureaucratic limbo. Instead, officials told residents their symptoms were psychosomatic, fancy talk for you're imagining it. One health officer had the nerve to blame housewife hysteria, as if these mums were making it up while their kids suffered. Lois Gibbs wasn't having it. She turned her rage into action, organizing the Love Canal Homeowners Association. Picture this, a group of moms, dads, and neighbors, armed with nothing but petitions and raw courage, staging protests outside City Hall, chaining themselves to fences, and demanding answers. They weren't polished activists. They were factory workers, teachers, and parents who'd never marched before, but refused to let their families be poisoned in silence. Lois became their leader, a suburban Joan of Arc, calling out Hooker and the government on national TV. Her mantra? We're not moving until someone listens. Her persistence paid off in ways that shook America. On August 2, 1978, New York State declared Love Canal a state of emergency, the first time in U.S. history a man-made disaster got that designation. President Jimmy Carter himself got involved, visiting the site and green-lighting federal funds to evacuate families. Over 230 households packed up, leaving behind homes they'd poured their lives into. Bulldozers rolled in, flattening houses into rubble. An entire community vanished, erased by a legacy of greed. It was a gut-wrenching sight, moving trucks, crying kids, and parents wondering how they'd start over. But Love Canal's impact didn't end there. It changed America forever. The outrage sparked the creation of the EPA's Superfund program in 1980, a federal effort to clean up the nation's worst toxic sites. Love Canal's cleanup alone cost over $400 million, massive containment systems, drainage trenches, and fences to keep the poison locked away. Occidental Chemical, Hooker's parent company, was dragged into court, eventually shelling out $98 million in settlements. It was a drop in the bucket compared to the human toll. Families got checks, but no amount of money could undo the damage. Kids with lifelong illnesses, parents battling cancers linked to dioxin, dreams of a safe home shattered forever. The personal stories are what hit hardest. Take Karen Schroeder, a young mum who grew up in Love Canal. She was born with a heart defect and needed multiple surgeries before age 10. Her sister developed leukemia, a cancer experts tied directly to the chemicals. Or think of John Allen, a kid who played in the Canal's contaminated fields, only to develop a rare neurological disorder that left him struggling to walk. These weren't statistics, they were real American families, betrayed by the very systems meant to protect them. And here's the twist that'll make your jaw drop. In the 1990s, after years of cleanup, officials declared parts of Love Canal safe again. They renamed it Black Creek Village, scrubbed the history, and started selling homes to new families. Picture shiny new houses where a toxic nightmare once stood. Some folks moved in trusting the government's promises, but others, they wouldn't touch it. Would you? Knowing kids once played in poisoned dirt, could you sleep soundly in a place with that kind of past? Love Canal is a stark warning for every American. It shows what happens when corporations put profits over people, when governments look the other way, and when ordinary folks pay the price. But it's also a testament to the power of one voice, Lois Gibbs, a mom who refused to be silenced, who took on a corporate giant and won. Her fight forced America to confront its toxic legacy, and today, over 1,300 Superfund sites across the country stand as proof that Love Canal wasn't a one-off. From California to New Jersey, hidden hazards still lurk, waiting to be uncovered. This story should fire you up. If it did, smash that like button and subscribe to the Marilyn Files for more hard-hitting investigations into the secrets big business doesn't want you to know. Could a disaster like this happen where you live? Check your town. Are there Superfund sites nearby? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let's start a conversation. The scariest threats are the ones you can't see, hiding in plain sight. Next week, we're diving into another corporate cover-up so wild, it'll make Love Canal look like a warm-up. You won't want to miss it.